bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place.
Ready?
This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go.
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Go!
All right, we are a couple of minutes late getting underway here on Birds 365. Thank you very much for your patience, Eagles fans. We're hanging with you for the next 2 hours, which means we've got to stay after class again today. Yesterday, I readily admit, it was my fault. We were a minute late getting on the air. It's because I was prepping as hard as I was for the show. I looked up the clock and said, oh, spit, 59. I better log in. Oh, today was not my fault. And thanks to Kyle Rogers, who's saying technical difficulties means Jody's still sleeping. No, I was up early this morning. I got up before the stupid alarm. I woke up 10 minutes ahead of time and downstairs for close to 2 hours now.
Wow.
Nothing to do with me oversleeping. I got to bed at a reasonable hour last night. No WIP duties till 2 a.m., so I got a good night's sleep. Thank you very much. It was actual technical difficulties, which I don't understand what the hell happened, but it wasn't my fault, or so I'm told. But we're here with you for the next 2 hours. John McMullen, quite busy yesterday, both listening to the channel, Howie Roseman, on with us on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel yesterday, and they paraded a whole bunch of guys out to you members of the media yesterday at the NovaCare complex.
Yeah, it was 6 players, I think, total. I have to look at my list here now. It always kind of mixes together. But yeah, we got quite a few players. And, that's how the Eagles are doing it this year. They're going to give us some players, basically once a week leading up to OTAs, which are on-field OTAs, which are late this month. I believe they start into early June. No mandatory minicamp, as we talked about. And then you have that one period on the NFL calendar until the start of training camp, when things kind of slow down a little bit. But one thing I know about the NFL, one reason this show exists, Jody, never stops. And today, happy schedule day, everybody. Happy schedule day. Or to me, as I put on Twitter already, Jody, happy end to NFL schedule leak day. At least I don't have to deal with that nonsense. Every 5 seconds, I got somebody texting me, tweeting me, oh, did you see week 4, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm happy it's going to be over. But,
I think we're getting leaked. It's supposed not to start till 8 o'clock tonight.
Well, no, we're going to get more leaks, but this day is the end.
That's what I mean. You're not done yet leaking your life away.
This day is the end of the leaks, though. No matter what, at the end of this day, it's over. So to me, it's happy end of schedule leak day.
All right, fair enough. Before we get to the leaking and the schedule and everything else, I got 2 good guests coming your way today. Jim Kempsky's going to join us, and Game Day Kratz will be aboard. Since it is NFL schedule day, I guess it's almost like a game day. There's as much coverage of the release of the schedule as there is actual games going to be played. So Eddie Kratz will be on with us. Those that had a chance to be heard yesterday, the players that the Eagles made available to you guys as members of the media. You've often said here on the show that the Eagles do listen to requests. If enough people specifically ask for somebody, they'll try and make someone available. Why do you think the group that came out, and I know we're trying to overanalyze something as to the procedure and the selection of the guys, but that's what we do here on Birds 365. Why do you think this group was selected to talk to you guys?
Well, you have to realize this is the second group. So the first group was last week, and we got, Jalen Hurts and that ilk. Obviously, if you're the quarterback, you pretty much have to go first in that group. So, there's a group of guys that understand this is part of their job and, are not adverse. Some players just don't like talking to the media. And it's, a little bit more difficult for them in the current environment, which is still not to pre-COVID. It's getting better. I mean, we're down at the facility, but we're not in the locker room. So you have to stand on the stage, sit on the stage in this case, and, talk in the microphone to a bunch of guys shouting questions at you. So some people aren't comfortable with it. And others are used to it. And we're still into the used to it category. Javon Hargrave led off. I'm just looking at the order. Miles Sanders, Hassan Reddick, obviously he's new here, but as a guy who's had 23 and a half sacks over the last 2 years, I imagine he's used to getting some attention. Dallas Goedert, Jordan Mailata, Anthony Harris were the players that spoke yesterday, and those are typical guys that speak every week during the season. So we're still in that mode. The one guy missing, though, I will say so far, has been Fletcher Cox. So that's a guy who typically talks and probably has shied away from it to this point because of the contract wranglings and what went on from that aspect. But he's got to talk sometime. It'll happen eventually.
And his fellow DT, who was also on the last year of his contract, did speak yesterday and said the contract is not going to be an issue. He's going to be able to focus and just go out and play. You buying what Javon was trying to sell yesterday?
Yeah, I think because Javon's kind of used to it more. He played out his contract in Pittsburgh. And he said when he started his career, he was basically a year to year. So he's kind of used to it from that perspective more than somebody who was entrenched, like Fletcher. And remember, Fletcher got released technically and then came back and restructured his contract. So a little bit of a different framework from him. Miles Sanders spoke, and he's in a kind of very high profile contract year. So, I mean, It happens to a lot of players. Dallas Goedert last year was, betting on himself until he finally got his contract done. So it's always a little bit of a different situation, but you always have guys entering contract years. That part of it's not that outside the box. Fletcher's a little bit different because of his status on the team, and he was released and came back and all that stuff.
One guy who stepped up yesterday, and I'm sure the Eagles were happy after his session because, man, did he take the company line. Anthony Harris, who is back on a one-year deal at less than he was paid last year, is right now the only returning starter in the at the safety position for the Eagles. And he went down the road of it's my job to mentor these young guys. We've talked about that plenty here on the show, that when quarterbacks say, I'm not mentoring this guy, I can't complain about that. I don't think you should ask players to virtually take over their position, help out the guy who's going to take over their position down the road. So Anthony Harris went above and beyond for me. Not only is he going to be a starter for the Eagles, Johnny Mac, he's almost an assistant coach.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how players handle that situation because some of them really embrace it, really enjoy it. Jason Kelsey would be in that category as well. And he jokes he's been trying to train his replacement for, I think, 8 years, he said last week. It seems to happen more at quarterback, I would say, than anywhere else. The high profile, like, I'm not going to mentor him. Who was the latest? Ryan Tannehill, I believe.
Yep.
obviously Brett Favre, probably the most famous. It's like, I'm not going to help this guy out. Didn't hurt Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, it is. It's always been an interesting way of doing things, the setup and the fact that, let's be honest, Jody, you're mentoring, as you said, your potential replacement, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to want to embrace that role. But sports is a little bit different. I think people look at it like regular jobs. It's not a regular job. You have a short shelf life. You know it. Part of your job is to bring along the next guy. So some guys understand that. I think it's a lot easier when you have the gravitas of a Jason Kelce, and you're good to go, and you'll walk off on your own terms pretty much. Then somebody like Anthony Harris, who's obviously got to do some things. And, I could argue Marcus Epps is better than Anthony Harris right now. I don't know if he is, but I think he can make that argument. He's not nearly as entrenched as somebody like Jason Kelce. So it's always difficult.
And I give extra credit to a guy like Anthony Harris. I'm just saying, I don't know if I would be willing to do it. Maybe I'm a little self-centered. I'm gonna worry about number one and not anybody else. But if a guy is comfortable enough and dedicated enough to make that kind of a statement, more power to him. Good for a guy like Anthony Harris. All right, McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 365. We got a late start, which means we're getting to our first guest early. That's a good thing when you have Jimmy Kempski from PhillyVoice.com ready to join you. JK joins us next here on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Along with John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. That makes us Mac and Mac Birds 365, guys. We got another Eagle expert fall in with us. He probably takes his phillyvoice.com standard as the most important thing he does. I do the fact that he's a member of the Marlton Mafia. And oh, by the way, it kind of pushes me to the third most knowledgeable football guy here in town. Baldinger lives here. Kemsky lives here. I live here. Damn, I just keep falling down that list.
Damowich lives here too.
Yeah, Damo lives in
And
Marlton.
Damo did girls basketball before I did girls basketball.
Yeah.
How did I forget him? I'm following in his footsteps
I'm
all over the place.
I'm going to go Randy Brown too, since he coaches.
That's right. Former mayor of Marlton, Randy Brown.
Randy should have stuck to football. No, but we kid because we care. Jimmy Kemsky, good to see you, buddy. How's your off season going?
It's the draft is over. So, and today, of course, is the schedule release.
Yeah.
But once you get past today, it's kind of a big gap between, well, I guess we have OTAs.
We still have OTAs for
what
what they're going to do, Jimmy.
But from now until the end of July, when training camp begins, this is the best time of year for. I'm kidding, of course, but no, this is when we sort of get our lull in the action and can actually enjoy our lives for a little while.
Yeah, breather, but only a little bit of a breather. So
Right.
You mentioned you're not going to be around for OTAs. Are the Eagles going to be around? They're not really doing anything. They're going to be out there. But is that? I thought it was interesting. We go back a couple weeks. It was one of the draft press conferences. I think it was Zach Berman who asked them about the off-season work and the scale back and how he kind of shuttled it off to Nick Sirianni. And I was kind of shaking my head, and I've yet to meet the football coach. I always say, Jimmy, that doesn't want to practice. I don't think Nick is that guy.
Right.
You think it's a big deal? The Eagles have this sort of scale back and off-season work and really into training camp and the shorter practices and all that kind of stuff.
So what they're going to highlight is the fact that they had a very lucky season last year in terms of injuries. I mean, we've seen this team just get wrecked by injuries in, over the last half decade plus. I mean, they've had seasons destroyed because of major injuries along their offensive line. Notably also in their secondary at cornerback, safety as well. And last year, I mean, they had some offensive line injuries, but for the most part, they were a very healthy team, at least relative to other seasons. And that was part of the reasoning for them scaling back, their training camp practices and almost not playing their starters at all in the preseason. I mean, not just in the last two games or anything.
Jalen Hurts was entrenched. When we're all talking, right. He was entrenched.
He didn't take a snap in the preseason at all last year, right? Yeah. No. So they placed a heavy emphasis on trying to do whatever they can to having all their players available week one. So in that respect, it worked. They actually won pretty convincingly week one last year. I mean, they were the most penalized team in the NFL early in the season last year. So maybe that's an argument against sort of not, kind of going a little harder during training camp and the preseason. But yeah, it's an interesting debate to go either way. I agree with you. Certainly no head coach is going to be like, yeah, okay, let's just stay healthy. Let's just make sure we're healthy for week one and not maybe practice as hard as we should. But I do see merit to both sides of the argument.
Speaking of most penalized team in the NFL, leads me right into my first question. Derek Barnett, back for the Philadelphia Eagles. You are the king of the compensatory draft pick follow and understand and explain it better than anybody else I know. Would the Eagles have been better just letting Derek Barnett walk out the door? Would have put him in better compensatory draft pick status, would it not have?
So if he had walked in free agency and signed with another team and was and qualified for the comp pick formula, they still wouldn't have more players lost in free agency than gained. So they still wouldn't have gotten a compensatory pick if he left. Unfortunately for them, otherwise they might have let him go. But yeah, I mean, but as far as bringing him back, I certainly wasn't a fan of that move. In fact, every year at the end of the season, I do a quote unquote stay or go series. Sure. I look at each positional group, and he was bottom 5 on the roster in terms of the fan voting in that series. So I also give the readers an opportunity to vote whether they want players to stay or go. He was at like 5% stay. So like it was almost like 95% wanted him to go, leave the Eagles this offseason. They bring him back. They pay him like $5-6 million or something like that. I think the injury to David Ojabo during his pro day, he tore his Achilles. I think that may have had a lot to them bringing Barnett back, because I don't think they felt confident that one of the top tier edge rushers would make it to them at pick 15 or whatever. So they just wanted to make sure that they had somebody in place at edge rusher that they could, they at least with him, they have some familiarity with him. But yeah, ultimately, not as you mentioned, he had an absurd number of penalties last year, only had 2 sacks. So he actually did more harm than good, in my opinion, last year. They still view him as a like legitimate starting level defensive end in the NFL. But I certainly do not agree with them bringing him back, or Fletcher Cox at $14 million for that matter.
Now, okay, they weren't able to get that edge rusher, as you mentioned, Jimmy, and I agree with you. I think David Ojabo had a lot to do with it. They were able to trade up to get the big defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Now there's a 55% chance he would have been there, and you're probably the only one who's going to get that joke. So I appreciate you doing that piece. When you look at the Eagles' moves in the first round as a whole, and sort of the trying to seize the moment to get difference makers versus volume of the draft, and going from 10 picks to 5 picks and not being able to get that day 3 running back, not being able to get a corner, not being able to safety. How do you kind of weigh that decision making?
So on day 1, I think they got 2 legit difference makers in Jordan Davis and in A.J. Brown. I mean, my instant analysis for the trade for A.J. Brown was, holy crap, they got A.J. Brown. Like you take a wide receiver position that has always been, or not always, but over the last, 10 years or so, has been a pretty significant weakness on this roster. And now you could argue it's a strength with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. And if Quez Watkins can continue to improve, then they might have something there. And of course, Dallas Goedert is arguably a top 5 receiver. So they might actually have something there. You put those guys with arguably the best offensive line in the NFL, and this offense is set up. I mean, Jalen Hurts has an opportunity to really do something with this offense that's supporting him. So we'll see how that goes. But he's a major difference maker. If you have an opportunity to get a guy like him, go do it. As far as the trade up for Jordan Davis, they give up, what was it, a 4th round pick and a couple 5s to move from, and it's a modest move up. I mean, they didn't go far. They only went from 15 to 13. But when you look at the players that got taken at 15 through the rest of the first round, I think there was a pretty substantial drop off from, and this is assuming Jordan Davis and Kyle Hamilton go in, whatever order you prefer at picks 13 and 14. And I look back at the 2014 draft when they had identified 6 players that they were really interested in that first round. And the last 2 of those players were still available. The Eagles were picking 22. And when the Cardinals were on the clock at pick 20, there were 2 players left that the Eagles really were targeting, Brandon Cooks and Clinton Dix. And the Eagles had an opportunity to trade up with the Cardinals to pick number 20 to make sure that they got one of those guys. And it almost certainly would have been Brandon Cooks. They did not. They didn't think the Cardinals were going to take a wide receiver or safety. And they got a little cute and they thought, okay, well, we'll just sit here and we'll get one of those guys. And then boom, Saints trade up. They take Cooks. The Packers at 21 take Clinton Dix. The Eagles are stuck at 22 with nothing. They make a little trade back and they yada, yada, yada. They end up with Marcus Smith. So in my opinion, that was a lesson learned for them in this draft, in that if they didn't get up to 13 to go get Jordan Davis, then they could be sitting there ultimately at 15, kind of holding nothing. So I think the aggressive move here was warranted because I do think there was a drop off. Was it a tough price to pay? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to give up 3 picks to move up 2 spots, of course. But when you have a guy like Jordan Davis, who his floor is premium run stopping defensive tackle. That's
which they didn't have, by the way. They did not have.
So now you get that guy,
season.
you can allocate more resources to the back end to you have more guys in coverage theoretically. And then his ceiling is he's the most athletic defensive tackle ever, essentially, for a guy that's 6'6", 340, can run a 4.78, which is insanity. So he's got a high ceiling to be determined if he can put up sack numbers in the NFL, but the potential is certainly there.
Howie Roseman might have been ahead of the game back in that year you were referencing, because according to the ESPN draft simulator, anytime you trade up, you're a loser.
Yeah.
So that's why Howie didn't trade up. And by the way, I want to kind of question Nick Sirianni. How did he miss out on the opportunity to not sing the praises of A.J. Brown like Pete Carroll did in Seattle? Drew Lock would have been the number one quarterback drafted had he been in this year's class. Oh, okay, Coach Pete. Yeah, right. A.J. Brown would have been the number one wide receiver in this draft. And that's actually saying something with as many wide receivers who went, unlike the quarterback position this year. A.J. Brown's addition. Dallas Goedert kind of talked about it with you guys yesterday. Targets. He's not worried about his targets. He thinks his targets are going to be fine. He thinks they're just going to throw the ball more in general, which will be fine for his targets. And he said the same for Devontae Smith. Don't think Devontae's sweating his targets. They gave up what they gave up, and they're paying A.J. Brown what they're paying him. Oh, he's going to get the football. How much more are the Eagles going to throw the football this year? We all know it's some.
Yeah.
How big an increase is it going to be, Jimmy K?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really commit to the run game last year until like week 7-ish, somewhere around there, or the Raiders game on the road, and they got behind early in that game, and they sort of abandoned it. But that was the week where they sort of knew, okay, we got to abandon this pass-heavy offense and sort of play to our strengths. And then they became the most run-heavy team in the NFL from that point on, by a long shot. By the end of the year, they were the most run-heavy team in the NFL, even with the first 6-7 weeks of the season or whatever, where they passed the ball a lot. And that was when they were at their best, was when they were running the ball a lot. I don't think they feel as a franchise, though, that that's a formula for winning a Super Bowl, is to be as run-heavy as they were last year. And I think they do want to throw the ball more. It's just a matter of how much is Jalen Hurts going to improve, A, from an accuracy standpoint, and then B, in terms of, reading the defense and trusting what he sees and getting the ball out a lot more quickly than he has in his first 1+ year as a starter for the Eagles. So as far as what A.J. Brown is going to bring to the table here in terms of the targets that he's going to get, I would assume that certainly he, Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, those three guys are going to get the lion's share of the targets. And then if Quez Watkins can sort of stretch the field, if you can get the ball deep to him a few times, at least make defenses respect it, then the short to intermediate areas of the field are going to be wide open for those guys to make plays. And A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert, for that matter, are excellent after the catch once they get the ball in their hands. And that was sort of an element that the Eagles were missing, at least from their wide receivers. Devontae Smith, very smooth route runner, can get open, can get separation, good hands. He's going to make the plays that come to him. Quez Watkins, speed guy, of course. He's actually got a little bit of run after the catch juice, but neither of those guys are big tackle breakers. So now you got a guy in A.J. Brown that defensive backs fear, that defensive backs often can't get on the ground. And you have a guy like Dallas Goedert who runs hard after the catch, and they're going to bring a toughness and physicality element to their receiving corps that I think they previously lacked.
Shifting sides of the ball, I think the most interesting part of yesterday's player availability was Hassan Reddick. And before I get to that, Jimmy, I think it was you, correct me if I'm wrong, you asked Nick, are you going to be a 4-3 team or 3-4 team? He said, I'll never answer that question. Teams want to know. Yeah, teams really are really concerned. We're not going to know that until September.
Yeah, right.
Or you're not going to line up on defense in training camp. But I digress. Hassan did bring up something interesting, and I'm surprised because he was paying the company line, and he'll say, you'll see how I'm used on week 1, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked him, what's your day like? Are you working with Tracy Rocker? Are you working with Nick Rallis? How is this shaping up for you? And he said, no, I'm in a room with Coach Jeremiah Washburn.
Yeah.
And they have shifted their coaching sort of the defensive line, the interior defensive line, Tracy Rocker, the defensive end outside linebackers, Jeremiah Washburn, and obviously the inside linebackers, Nick Rollis. Does that tell you anything on what's going on here?
Yeah, it's interesting that they've sort of carved out a new coaching position. By the way, my apologies if you can hear this background noise. My girlfriend, I believe, is running her hairdryer.
Oh,
nice.
Happens all the time.
My wife looks good for you, JK. Be thankful.
I did not alert her to me being on this on your program here before I went on. My apologies. So if there's background noise, my bad. But yeah, I thought I was taking a step back even further. Brandon Graham in his player availability, like what was that, like a week ago, maybe a little more? Yeah. He said he was talking about Jordan Davis being an addition to the defense and how it's crucial that you have, that big body nose tackle in a 3-4. And bad job by us as a reporting group in general that we didn't follow up with him on that. I think it was near the tail end of his press conference. There was only like 2 or 3 more questions thereafter, so nobody followed up on him saying 3-4 defense. But then when Nick came up, you're right. Like I asked him, are you gonna run? Like they're gonna run a lot of different looks. I think you're gonna see like different. You're gonna see odd man fronts. You're gonna see even man fronts. But I think there is gonna be a shift to more odd man fronts this season, and they have the personnel to sort of do it. Like Milton Williams, Fletcher Cox can certainly play that 3-4 defensive end spot. Brandon Graham can shift inside on certain down distance scenarios. You have Jordan Davis, of course, who's a perfect fit, obviously, for a 3-4 nose. Josh Sweat, in my opinion, is a guy that is I think he's more made for like a 3-4 outside linebacker personally than a 4-3 defensive end. And then, certainly you have Hassan Reddick, who at 230 pounds or whatever he is not you're not going to line him up at 4-3 defensive end on early downs anyway. So, having an odd man front where he's playing on the edge makes a lot more sense for him. So they have the personnel to sort of fit a 3-4 defense. So just logically speaking, yeah, it's certainly it makes sense for them to shift in that direction a little bit more. But then, as you noted, carving out an entirely new coaching position for essentially like edge rushers I think that's a telltale sign that they are going to shift more in that direction.
We know that Hassan Reddick is going to be a weapon. How that weapon will be deployed is yet to be determined. All right, let me throw this one by you. It'll be your answer will be telling. We'll find out tonight the Eagles schedule. We know they play week 2 at home open against the Vikings, so they're on the road week 1. Let's say they're in Arizona, and after running the ball on first down and picking up 2 yards, Kyler Murray gets 5 wide receivers. Sorry, Zach Ertz, you're off the field. 5 wide receiver look, second play of the season. Who's on the field for the Eagles?
In terms of in their secondary
defense, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, certainly that CB2 spot, the second cornerback spot, which Nick Sirianni thought was funny for some reason. That someone said CB2.
Yeah, I think that was Ed. That was Ed Krause. CB2.
So, yeah, I mean, they have Darius Slay and they have Avonte Maddox. So you have 2 spots that are locked down, your CB1 and your slot corner. And then second cornerback is sort of a mystery what they're going to do there. They brought in, like a half dozen young cornerbacks, both during the offseason and during the actual season last year. I think, and then, of course, we mentioned earlier that they didn't have injuries at the cornerback position last year, which was sort of a departure from what we've sort of come to know.
Steve Nelson was extremely durable, which is sort of underrated, underreported as well.
And Slay, both of them. Yeah. I mean, both of them. I mean, Slay left a couple games, but he started every game with the exception of the meaningless, week 18 game against the Cowboys. But they had great health there. So we didn't get to see a guy like Zach McPherson play much last year because the opportunity just wasn't there. So we don't know really what those guys can do because of those guys, the only one that we really even got to see during training camp was McPherson because they added all those other guys like Tay Gowan, like Carrie Vincent. I guess we got to see Josiah Scott in training camp, but Mac McCain. We didn't get to see most of these guys in training camp. So they're all going to get an opportunity, I think, to show what they can do. In the meantime, you have a guy like James Bradbury, who's suddenly on the market after the Giants cut him. We'll see if they have interest there. There are a lot of other corners, like veteran corners, that you could get by with as a 1-year Band-Aid for, if you get into training camp, you don't like what you see from these younger corners, you're not sure that like they can be there. There are plenty of veteran cornerbacks that can come in and sort of at least hold down the fort, especially in the Jonathan Gannon defense that doesn't put as much stress on cornerbacks as Jim Schwartz's defense did over the last half decade. So I think that they'll eventually be fine there. But as we look at the depth chart as it stands right now, that's certainly a concern area for sure.
Well, one of the things about the scale back in the offseason where we started this, Jimmy, is that, how do you look at Zach McPherson and Tay Gowan and Mac McCain, Kerry Vincent, Mario Goodrich, Josh Jobe, Josh Blackwell, all these undrafted kids. Yeah. How do you look at them in OTAs? You're going to be doing some 7-on-7s, but last year it was Steve Nelson 2 days, I think, before the start of training camp. That's when they signed Steve Nelson. So you can bring in Trey Waynes at that point, probably, history with Jonathan Gannon. But how do you know you have to bring in Trey Waynes? Do you think the Eagles already have that in mind? We got to upgrade. If Bradbury's market doesn't develop, which it probably will, so the Eagles, I would guess, are not going to be involved. But you never know. When is your timing of, okay, we have to bring in a veteran right now because the Zach McPhersons of the world aren't ready?
Yeah, I think you got to weigh opportunity, first of all. So if you think that like a James Bradbury, for example, is substantially better than the other veteran cornerbacks that are on the market, then maybe you go out and just get that guy. Otherwise, I don't think there's a lot of separation between the other veterans that are sort of available right now. So maybe you can wait into training camp a little bit to see what you have at those, because like you said, they're not going to be able to tell much from what they do in OTAs. Last year was a little different, I think, because they didn't really have anyone who, they've thrown so many guys against the wall, maybe one will stick, but they didn't have that last year. Like they hadn't yet added all those young guys. So maybe that's a little bit of a difference in why they signed Steve Nelson. I didn't realize it was a couple of days before training camp. That's interesting. I thought that was into training camp already, but they did ultimately bring him in July. It's a good debate on when you actually bring in that CB2. I would guess that it'll if they don't sign Bradbury now, then I would guess that it will be into training camp. I don't think they'll sign anyone before then, again, unless they think there's a big difference between whoever they want to bring in and the rest of the group.
All right. Another difference between this year's camp and last year's camp. Last year, the Eagles came in believing they didn't want to run much 12 position. And then they got to look at their two tight ends, and the coach said, yeah, maybe we got to run two tight ends more than we were planning because these might be the two best wide receivers that we have receivers we have on the team. They got about 12 tight ends on their 90-man roster right about now. How would you rank them after Dallas Goedert? Who's tight end? Now, sorry, Nick, apologize in advance. Tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4. Run them down for us, Jimmy.
Yeah, so Goddard's the one, obviously, and then big drop off from him to whoever's 2. And I think the tight end 2 will sort of be shared by Grant Calcaterra, who they drafted in the 6th round, and by Jack Stoll, who was an undrafted guy last year who got opportunities to play quite a bit, but wasn't really anything more than a blocker. I think he only had 4 targets or four catches or 4 targets on the season.
And the yardage wasn't great either, Jimmy.
So he wasn't exactly Tony Gonzalez coming off the bench for the Eagles. So I think it'll be it'll be Goddard, and then Calcaterra and Stoll will be tight end 2A and tight end 2B. And then the rest of the group, you have Tyree Jackson there, who tore his ACL in the meaningless Week 18 game last year. I think they're still quite interested in developing him, but you're probably going to have him starting the training camp on the PUP list, possibly into the season on the PUP list. I'm not buying that JJ Arcega-Whiteside's move from wide receiver to tight end.
No, not going to work.
I don't think it has any meaning whatsoever. This guy was basically a tight end last year, and that was sort of his role. He was in there to block. So, like, I don't think that this is going to be sort of a career-saving move for him. And then beyond that, I guess they still have Richard Rodgers on the roster, and who am I missing?
Yeah, Richard's always there. Noah.
Yeah. So, I don't think those guys will make the initial 53. They always sort of seem to have Richard Rodgers. They got a Richard Rodgers button on their phone, like the speed dial. They can bring him back at any time. I think. I don't think.
By the way, is Richard Rodgers 1 on the speed dial, or Jordan Howard 2, or vice versa? Because nobody else calls these guys.
I think it's Rodgers 1 because it's been like 3 or 4 years for him now. Howard 2, and then like police, fire, poison control 3, 4, 5.
And who was that offensive one? Julian Vanderbilt. I thought he had a cot in the back in the little. And they just brought him out every couple of days. Julian's here. Julian's gone.
Julian was a willing participant in one of my favorite articles that I've ever done. Basically, what I did was I had a camera and my phone, I'd written down on a pad every roster transaction that he has ever been involved in. And there was a list of like
a legal notebook, Jimmy?
Yes. There's a list of like 30 of them. And for each, so I read off each roster like I said, the date, and I said, what happened? Like he got waived or he got re-signed or whatever. And he had to do a facial expression for each one that I read, and he had a facial expression for every single one. And I took a picture of it, and I just had like a running, sort of timeline of his facial expressions after each roster transaction. He was that was the best player interview, the most willing, sort of self-deprecating player interview I've ever had. Julian Vanderbilt is absolutely the man.
And unfortunately, he's not on the roster as of right now. So you're going to have to add another one when they bring him back.
That's right.
But that'll work for you because you say he's a good guy and he'll do it for you. All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of good guys, we've gotten half an hour and we haven't talked about the most important position, which, of course, is quarterback. Jalen Hurts is the guy. Everybody said it. The draft came and went. They didn't pick a quarterback. They did sign a quarterback as an undrafted free agent, though. Actually, they signed 2. And then one guy said, well, wait a minute. You didn't tell me you were going to sign Carson Strong. I'll go down and join Dougie P. and JAKIB, the Brown kid. Carson Wentz will be in camp. He'll be on the practice squad. That's one you don't have to worry about. I don't think they'll dress him as QB3 because if some team desperately wants him, they could have drafted him. Everybody passed on him. Mm-hmm. At some point, does he get good enough that they elevate him to QB3? At some point, does he really get good enough that if he's better in practice, the Eagles at least have to consider playing him some this year?
Yeah, there's on Reddit. I don't know if you're familiar, but Reddit, there's an Eagles page there. They unearthed a 2022 mock draft from a year ago. So like after the draft last year, they found a mock draft for 2022 that had Carson Strong going number 1 overall. So the very good find by whoever found that. But yeah, he's a talented player. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. Over the last 2 seasons at Nevada, he completed over 70% of his passes, which is like, and they run sort of that, that air raid offense, which, is going to be conducive to high completion percentages. Still, over 70% 2 straight years is very impressive. He's got talent. He was at the Senior Bowl this year. I was impressed with the way he threw the football, but ultimately why he fell, why he didn't get drafted at all, is because he's got major knee issues. Knee is basically made of pudding and paper mache. So, we'll see if that can hold up, but he's got talent. I agree with you. He's probably bound for the practice squad this year. I mean, they have Jalen Hurts and they have Gardner Minshew. If he plays really legitimately
Don't forget Reed Sinnett, Jimmy.
And Reed Sinnett, my apologies. Reed Sinnett moved from 17 to 13, I think, for Nakobe Dean. I don't know how much you care about these jersey analytics, but Carson Strong, if he lights it up in the preseason, you can't waive him because then somebody will just grab him. Somebody will claim him off of waivers. So that's his chance of making the roster. And if he doesn't, then you can stash him on the practice squad and see if he can develop and if that knee can not disintegrate into dust, then they might have something there. But he is a very talented player, and if his knee holds up, then it is a potential backup long term, because you have Gardner Minshew for one more year to be determined if they'll trade him at some point. Either this offseason, if a quarterback gets hurt, or into the season. There's a report that the Panthers had interest during the season last year. The price was too high or whatever. But yeah, certainly if you can bring in a quarterback as talented as him as an undrafted free agent, it's a no-brainer. And
one thing we know, he's going to get playing time at the preseason, because Jalen is not. So he's going to get plenty of opportunities to kind of prove himself. He is Jimmy Kempski. PhillyVoice.com does a tremendous job. Last one from me, Jimmy, is your all NFC East team. The preseason edition is out. Everybody should check that out at PhillyVoice.com. Eagles look pretty good when matched up against the rest of the NFC East. Kind of give people a little preview of the offense and defense.
Yeah, the Giants stink was my biggest takeaway from this exercise, both offensively and defensively. Commanders don't have much offensively other than, Terry McLaurin. But yeah, the Eagles have a better roster than I think they're being given credit for right now. I mean, I had 4 of their 5 starting offensive linemen make this, all NFC East team in Mailata, Dickerson, Kelsey, Lane Johnson. So yeah, I mean, their offensive line, like I stated earlier, I think is in the conversation to be the best in the NFL, not just in terms of their starting 5, but they also have good depth as well. And now their receivers and tight end group is a strength all of a sudden. It's all there for Jalen Hurts. It's like the Cowboys have the best quarterback in the division. And I think there's not a huge gap, but there's a decent enough gap between him and whoever you have second. I would have Jalen Hurts second. But he's probably the best, but Dak Prescott is, what would you call him? Borderline top 10 to 12? I would say
borderline top 10. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so certainly not elite by any stretch, but he is the best in the division. But I think, you take the quarterbacks out of it. I think the Eagles have the best roster in the division. I mean, the Cowboys have some, major playmakers on the defensive side of the ball in Michael Parsons and in Trayvon Diggs. The Eagles don't have, that level of player, in my opinion, on their defense, but they have a lot of good players on defense, and we'll see how that they'll be improved on defense this season, in my opinion. But their offense, the quarterback discussion aside, their offense, that it's a very strong roster right now. I think the only position, quarterback aside, where there are maybe some questions is running back. And they were still the number 1 rushing offense in the league last year. Yeah. So, I think it's all there for Jalen Hurts to just grab this job and run with it. And I think that, by the way, this isn't what you asked, but I think the bar for, what Jalen Hurts needs to show in 2022 probably should be elevated a little bit, given the talent that he has working around him, the offensive line, and now these, this premium, however you want to call it, maybe not premium, but a very good group of receivers and tight ends. I think the bar should be raised a bit on the expectations for his play in 2022.
All right, Jimmy, I'm going to wrap it up with having you make a prediction.
Okay.
And no, it's not about the schedule, which is going to be released later today. It won't be about their preseason mark, where Jalen Hurts will not be taking a snap because he's going to be in bubble wrap. No, I want to go even before that. The controlled scrimmages. Last year, undefeated, the Eagles.
4-0, baby.
That's right.
The banner is up.
The banner is up at 4-0. They prefer to play AFC teams. I understand why. Last year, Jets, Patriots. I think Baltimore is a given, just to give you my opinion on it. Who do you think they're going to do it against this year? Can they go undefeated again this year?
So it's already been reported that they're playing the Browns. They're going to have joint practices with the Browns. I guess out in Berea.
What town is that out there in Ohio?
Berea, Ohio.
Ohio.
So I'm not thrilled about having. I have family in Cleveland, and no offense to them, it'd be great to maybe drop in and see them for a day or whatever. But I don't want to go to Cleveland for 4 days in the summer. Come on, Nick. Yeah. What are you getting me into here? But they'll play the Jets, of course, in one of their preseason games. And spoiler, please don't put this on social media or anything like that.
Yeah.
But my understanding is they'll play in Miami for their third preseason game.
Okay. All right.
So Miami in August, John, you looking forward to that?
It's not the worst place anytime.
Yeah, Miami's only one day in and out. How long you going to Cleveland for? 4 days?
Right, yeah.
Well, they have joint practices, so we'll probably be there, I guess, Thursday, Friday. Oh, no. The preseason games are on Thursday. So it'll probably be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll be out there.
I hope they have a tree out there like the Jets. Tree in the middle of the
That's
practice.
a very nice tree.
Yeah.
Kemsky, always a pleasure. Thank you much for coming on. You know, we're going to be asking in just a couple of weeks. Whatever downtime you get, enjoy. But we're expecting you back here on Birds 365.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks,
Jimmy
Jim.
Kemsky, PhillyVoice.com here with us on Birds 365. Ooh, Miami going to be their third preseason game, but he said don't tell anybody.
Yeah, it's going to be hot. Oof. But, you know, at least Miami has the ocean. So, you know, you have a little bit of a breeze. In Berea, you're going to be just that humid, sticky. That's going to be awful.
Yeah, but Miami's ocean, not as good as the oceans we got here behind us, John.
Yeah.
That's the number one ocean right there. McDonald and McMullen, your Birds 365 guys. Kratz yet to come back. I do want to talk some more schedule. It's a big day around the NFL schedule release day. We already know one of the Eagles' 17 games. How's the rest of it going to shake out? We'll talk about it next year on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
We are your Mag guys here on Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald coming up. Game day Kratz. Eddie Kratz is going to join us in less than 20 minutes from now. I got to say,
had a panic moment there, Jody. My computer shut down on me.
Yeah, you did do a little exit stage left. So I'm not the. We're not the. Again, Technical difficulties come in all shapes and sizes. I admit there was a technical difficulty yesterday. I forgot to log in. I was too busy prepping for the show. Yes, I've overslept once in a year and change, but everybody remembers it and called me out on it on the stream. No, today was actual technical difficulties, and your computer just dropped on you. That's an actual technical difficulty.
Yeah.
It does happen from time to time.
I was panicked. I got the 10-second green screen of death. I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. Then it just came back.
Yeah, my green screen was the oceans had disappeared. I was in the drink, actually. It was nothing but green behind me when we were getting ready to start the show. I got to give props. Who the heck had it? Someone had it here on the stream saying your buddy Jeff McMullen, and I didn't get a chance to punch Jeff up on Twitter, is reporting that the Eagles opener, we know their home opener is going to be week number 2 against the Vikings, the second half of a Monday night twin bill, actually an overlapping Monday night twin bill against Vikings. But he's reporting that the Eagles will open up on the road in Motown against the Lions. Beware your biting of the kneecaps, guys, if you're heading out to Detroit, as per their coach.
I was close. I predicted Chicago. I was close. I was very close.
Right division, however many miles apart. Not a bad way to start a season. Last year they did down in Atlanta. Atlanta turned out to be a below average team, and they were able to log a win. Eagles will be favored week 1 against the Lions in Detroit, will they not?
Oh, yeah. Of course. I mean, the Lions are coming off a terrible season, obviously, almost historically bad. And they haven't made, significant upgrades, certainly at the quarterback position. So no one's going to be looking at the Detroit Lions and saying, oh, they're ready to take off. I think they'll be a little bit better, obviously, anytime you draft as highly as they do. You're going to get some good players, but yeah, I mean, so you start off, I thought it would be Chicago and Minnesota week 1 and week 2. Turns out to be Detroit and Minnesota. It's a good chance to be 2-0 right off the bat. Jimmy Kemp's, you talking about raised expectations? Oh, I think there will be raised expectations, and people do realize the talent at the skill positions put around Jalen Hurts, and that's sort of the first sea change. You mentioned favorite. Yeah, they're going to be favored in both of those 2 games. And they're going to be expected to win both of those games. And that's the change, the beginning of the shift in those expectations.
Yeah, if Minnesota goes out and puts up a 40-spot week 1 and the Eagles lose to the Lions week 1, then they might not be favored week 2. But as of right now, if you were putting out lines on those games, you are correct, John McMullen. They would be favored in both games. So we're expecting a little bit of a fast start. And again, according to Jeff McMullen, he's bringing good news. The only 2 games that he's got a pulse on, he's been leaked, gotten his inside information on, were the opener and the game in Dallas this year, according to Jeff McMullen, will be played on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, that's going to be a difficult one. Christmas in Dallas.
Yeah, see, that's I apologize, John. You're my buddy. You're my pal. You're my partner. I appreciate everything you do on a day in, day out basis here on Birds. Yeah, that's on you. You go with the team. I don't. I'm going to be right here watching it on my 60-inch screen on Christmas Eve. You have to go down there. I apologize. Here's the only thing I'm happy about. I'm sorry for you, but I'm happy that they're not playing week 17. It's not Eagles, Cowboys, where one of the 2 teams is going to roll out the JV because they've already established where they're going to be in the postseason. It's before that. That's a good thing. Eagles may go into the same exact position this year against a Giant team or a Redskin team. It's not the same as a Dallas team that you're going up against. I'm just happy that, sorry for you, Johnny Mac, it's Christmas Eve rather than week 7.
Well, it's more of Dallas is not the worst place to be. I mean, first of all, they're going to have the first class spread because that's what Jerry Jones does. It's certainly on Christmas.
Are you
but,
thinking
you know,
turkey and all the
oh
trimmings?
yeah, it's like a 4-star restaurant there, Jody. It's unbelievable the spread they put out. Yeah, so that's the best place to be for that type of thing. You just got to explain it to the wives and all that kind of stuff, which is never easy, but it is what it is. Nobody cares about our problems.
Right. And I think I said thanks to Dank Bird on the stream who said, Jody keeps saying week 17. No, week 18.
Week
Game
18.
17 is
Yeah.
what scares me, that they could have been playing Dallas. And I want both games against the Cowboys this year to mean something. All right, let me get completely off track. Did you see this story about the mayor of Dallas wanting a second team?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I didn't give it much more than 10 seconds of thought, but
God bless them if they think they can. We've got 2 teams in New York. We got 2 teams in L.A. Dallas is a pretty big city, and it stone cold loves its football. The NFL doesn't need another team in
no,
Dallas.
and Jerry Jones would never allow it. Are you kidding me? I say this all the time. I don't think people realize the power Jerry Jones has in the NFL. You know, he's got his thumb in about 15 stadiums now across the country with his Legends hospitality, which is kind of I think a partnership with the Yankees still. And so anytime these new stadiums go up, he's got his, you know, he's making money off them, basically. He's always been sort of the lead guy on the TV negotiation committee, which is probably the most powerful position. Yeah, he's not letting another team in Dallas, even if they could support it. And look, from that standpoint, Dallas is probably more football hungry than certainly Los Angeles. And, you know, maybe not New York. New York's issues have been bad football teams for far too long. But when, you know, they're half decent, obviously New York fans are very passionate. But no, not in a million years would Jerry Jones allow. Why would he agree to share the market? Makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, I was same as you. Read it, said, yeah, that's not happening, and moved on. But I just it crawled into my consciousness. How badly would the Philadelphia fan base despise Dallas team 2? The coach doesn't like when we call him cornerback 2 or TE2. Dallas 2 would be the team there. There'd be no issue, right? It's the Cowboys.
No,
it's the star. It's not the town.
No.
Because we don't necessarily hate the Mavs or the Rangers came to town, 1-2 games. Nobody got all that ticked off. They were more ticked off at the Phillies than the opposition. It's just a Cowboy thing.
Yeah,
right?
there's no history. There's no with a new team. It's you know, and it would be an expansion team most likely. So I mean, it'd probably be bad on top of it to begin. Yeah, Philadelphia fans could care less. It's about the star. It's about, and it's really about, and I don't think, and you can talk to this as well, Jody. I don't think it's as hateful as it once was. I think, you know, the rivalry really was sparked when the Cowboys were great in the Roger Staubach era, and they were just dominant, and Tom Landry, and they were killing the Eagles year after year after year. And then there was the big Wilbert Montgomery game, and so much joy of finally beating the Cowboys. Now it's, you know, they've been okay. They're not the Roger Staubach Cowboys. They're not the Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin Cowboys. I think with a newer, younger group, I don't think there's quite as much angst because they haven't suffered that much pain. Some pain. I mean, it's still a huge rivalry. It's still the biggest rivalry by far, I think, for the Eagles fan base. But I don't think it's as bad as it once was because they no longer beat up on you. They used to beat up on you.
All right, before we get Eddie Kratz to jump aboard with us, got to give some props to our boys, Rob Ellis, Barrett Brooks, D Gunn, that Howie Roseman here on the channel yesterday. If you didn't see the interview, if you didn't hear about it, you didn't know about it, it's still available to you. You want to go back and watch it. Here's the thing that I was, I would say, most buoyed by, John, from what I heard from Howie Roseman yesterday. Jeff Lurie now likes Alabama players. That's a good thing to know. That the owner has become cognizant of the fact that they have some good football players coming out of Alabama, and look for the Eagles to be able to get their hands on them going forward, because the owner's now an Alabama guy.
Yeah, well, he's probably going to be a Georgia guy after this year, so we'll see. Just focus on the SEC. Just make it simple. How we talked about it, sometimes it's simple. And the way college is going because of NIL and all that stuff, it's even going to get more centered on the really, really good teams. So, there's going to be some other ones, Ohio State and Oklahoma probably, maybe even Notre Dame on an odd year here and there. But, focus on the superstar programs and you're going to be fine.
All right, what did you take from yesterday's Howie Roseman appearance here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel? He say anything that surprised you, anything that enlightened you, or did you think Howie played it cards pretty close to the best?
He played it pretty close to the best. He did tell some good stories, and how he's getting better with the joke telling. It's very important to him. He got a couple of guffaws. I think that's the most important thing to him. I think he's, his secret desires to be a stand-up comedian. But Howie's always very, he knows what he's doing, man, in these types of situations. So he is, I've noticed a bit of a theme where he's sort of soft pedaling those expectations that we talked about with Jimmy in just a little bit now. Because I think he realizes it too. And there are a lot of people that are going to be really excited about this season. The Eagles made the playoffs last season, maybe ahead of where they thought they were going to be. Not maybe, definitely ahead of where they thought they were going to be. And now you add difference makers to that mix, and the fact that A.J. Brown and Jordan Davis are here. And now it's about, well, you're better than the Cowboys. We just talked about Jimmy's all NFC East team. He said they're essentially better than the Cowboys from a talent perspective. So that's where you are. And I've noticed it a couple times. He did it again yesterday here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. It's like, we'll see, settle down. But I will say offensively, Matt, there are no excuses for Jalen Hurts. There's no more of this young, developing, he can get better. He doesn't have the weapons to get better. And again, injuries could change all this. We always throw that in there. But I don't know how much more you could ask for as a quarterback in this league when you talk about Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, that offensive line. And the running backs are, they're not great, but they had the number one rushing offense in the league last year because of the offensive line. And Miles Sanders sat there up with this. Miles Sanders practically admitted he had a bad season last year, Jody, which he did from a complete standpoint.
0 touchdowns.
And I know you're putting up 0 touchdowns. But you know what he did do? Averaged 5.5 yards per carry. And I joke that would make Jim Brown blush. I mean, that's pretty stinking good. 5.5 yards per carry. Now, we all know the issues with Miles and receiving and pass protection. Doesn't take what's blocked at times. And he's really, really focused, but he's really, really talented as well. I don't know if he's ever going to unlock the key to his potential. But 5.5 yards per carry, Jody. And, that's not good enough. That's if that's your weakness, count yourself lucky.
Right, but we also know the running back game is more than just yards per carry. That's a big part of it. The ability to get in the end zone does matter. Ability to catch the ball out of the backfield does matter, which is not a strong suit of Miles Sanders. That's why we're not bending over backwards saying, all right, we got to get a contract done with Miles Sanders because he's got to be the running back.
Well, and I agree, it's a weakness. I'm not saying I'm saying, but if that's your biggest weakness, that's not bad because everybody's got weaknesses. And if your weakness can still get you 5.5 yards per carry, but you're getting touchdowns from everybody else, well, who cares? You're still getting touchdowns. I mean, Jalen Hurts, how many rushing touchdowns? Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. Like they were getting rushing touchdowns. It was sort of, they were just not using Miles for that role. Pretty good weakness is how I would describe it.
That'll tell you how motivated the Eagles actually are to getting a contract extension done with Miles Sanders. If they don't have confidence enough to use him down by the goal line, that's a bad sign for.
And I don't think they will get it. I don't think they want an extension. I don't think they'll use an extension. I'm just saying that's the big weakness.
Right, but you're talking about the big weakness. If he's 5 point and it's a big deal, don't you have a contract extension done with him?
Yeah, but I'm saying what I'm saying is if that's your biggest weakness, that's good. I'm saying, yeah, they're probably not interested in a contract extension. Miles is probably not going to be here next year. I've been saying it longer than probably anybody. But what I'm saying is if that's your biggest weakness on offense, that's pretty good because I can look at every other team in this league and pick out weaknesses that are probably worse than Miles Sanders in the Eagles running game. That's my point.
My point is, who said their running game is their biggest weakness?
Well, I'm saying it on paper. A.J. Brown, well, what is on paper? I'll ask you, is it the tight end? Is it the wide receivers? Is it the offensive line?
It's the guy who stands behind the center.
And that's why there's no excuses for Jalen Hurts. I was putting Jalen Hurts aside. I'm saying as far as what Jalen Hurts doesn't have, what is the biggest weakness?
If you're asking me if you're just looking at the passing game and the running game, yes, with the addition of A.J. Brown, I would now rank the talent on the passing game ahead of the talent.
Well, and the offensive line as well. The offensive line is a big part of it. And offensive line is arguably certainly top 5. It could be the best in the NFL. So all I'm saying is if you're Jalen Hurts, there's no excuses anymore. There's no excuses.
And since we know who they'll be playing the first 2 weeks, I would rank both the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings in the bottom half of defenses in the National Football League. Maybe bottom third with Detroit.
Certainly
Minnesota
were last year. Yeah,
Detroit's
they were terrible.
Defense stinks. Minnesota's second half. Would you put them in the bottom third of the NFL defense?
Oh, they were bottom 5 last year. They were terrible.
Then, Jalen, you better be putting up points in weeks 1 and 2 because the expectation, despite the reservation of your general manager here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, he tried to temper the enthusiasm. No, Eagle fans will not allow that. You need to put up some points the first 2 weeks against 2 beatable defenses. McMullen and McDonald, your Mac and Mac guys, here with you on Birds 365. We got Game Day Krats next. Stick around.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rib...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
John McMullen, Jody McDonald, here with you on Birds 365. You ready to go, Ed Kratz? You
Hey, let's do it, guys. Let's do it, man. Let's go.
All right, you're ready. You're positive.
Ready to roll.
You ready to
Schedule
go?
day. You ready for the schedule, Ed Kratz? How exciting is this? On the pantheon of great days in Ed Kratz's life, where's NFL schedule day?
Oh, man. Gosh. Maybe bottom 50.
Oh.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited. It's always nice to see where, when they're playing and, what days you have to travel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess from that perspective, it's pretty cool. But yeah.
Detroit starting away. The only hotel rooms in the country, you still have to move the furniture to find a plug, Ed.
Well, you're staying in all the wrong places, John. You got to stay on the other side of the tracks. Yeah, I guess that's where they're going to open, right? That's the report. Jeff McLean, that's the Inquirer. But I also saw another report from the infamous NFL schedule leaks that they were going to go to Arizona.
Infamous, yeah.
On the first weekend. So, I think McLean's a little more believable. But still,
yeah. I had guessed Chicago. Detroit makes sense to me. I guess I look at it last year. That's how they tend to do it in conference, but out of division. And if you look at their opponents, I thought the most logical one, because you knew it was going to be on the road, it was Chicago. So Detroit makes a lot of sense as well.
Well, they opened in Atlanta last year.
Yeah.
So, it does make sense that they were going to go somewhere out of division. But, let's go to Detroit. Why not?
And this is a doable schedule, and that's a nice start. If McLean's got it right, Detroit, Minnesota, get out of the gates 2-0 would be very advantageous for the Eagles. All right, Eddie, I want to ask about a new Philadelphia Eagle. That would be Nakobe Dean, who they got in the 3rd round. Harry Roseman here on the channel said yesterday he couldn't believe as they were dropping in the 3rd round that Nakobe Dean was still on the board, and there was no way he was trading out at that spot. He had to cross his fingers, and sure enough, he was sitting there for them. So he sung his praises and seemed genuinely excited about it. Excited enough to make him the starting middle linebacker if he performs this year in camp and in the preseason games? You think he's got a chance to start in the middle for the Birds?
I think he has a chance to play a lot, whether or not he starts. But I just think that he gives Jonathan Gannon another piece in his defense, this hybrid defense that he wants to play. And the Kobe Dean's going to fit very nicely in there. And I think if you ask me, okay, yeah, maybe he'll start, but I'm not sure he'll start. There may be games where he does, but I think he'll work his way into more of a role as the year goes on, maybe right out of the chute, depending on what kind of a camp that he has. But if you look at the 5 rookie draft picks that the Eagles have, I would put him at the top of the list of that 5, even ahead of Jordan Davis, who will probably have the biggest impact on the defense this season.
I do want to get into the draft a little bit more with you, Ed, but before I do that, I just want to say, because this is sort of breaking, Tom Pelissero reports the Steelers are bringing in Andy Weidel for a second interview. So they're deep into their second interviews. Ryan Cowden, John Spytek from Tampa, Doug Whaley got another interview. Now Andy Weidel, who is a Pittsburgh guy, his first job in the league was in Pittsburgh. Tom Donahoe hired Andy Weidel in Pittsburgh, is now out in Philadelphia. His younger brother's out in Philadelphia. Smoke to this fire of Andy Weidel to Pittsburgh, you think, Ed Kratz?
Yeah, he had the first interview, and there was, the reporting that came out that the Steelers had interviewed 2 others for a second, and you're just waiting, for the report to come out that Andy Weidel will be in for his second interview, and here it is. So, yeah, I think it's legitimate, sure. There are connections with Pittsburgh, but, he's not the only candidate. They've interviewed several others, so he's got to go in on his second and, really, really wow them if he wants the job. And, I think there's a good chance that he can do that, and the Eagles will lose yet another member of that front office. I think that'll be their 11th defection, if you want to call it that, of the offseason. So, yeah, I think there's a good shot. Andy Weidel is the GM of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and why not? I mean, he's done a pretty good job in Philadelphia over these last couple of drafts. The Eagles brought in some talented players, and he's kind of rode shotgun with Howie on those selections. So, makes some sense that he could be the next guy in Pittsburgh.
All right, Eddie, need your take on a guy who's out there on the market. Eagles have added the free agents they have. They've drafted and added undrafted free agents. They still seem to be a little short at both cornerback and safety, at least for this Eagles fan. James Bradbury's out there. Giants released him this week. Understand the reason why. Not because he can't play, but because they structured his contract in a way that he kills them under the cap this year. They needed to save the $10 million they could do by cutting him. So he is a free agent, and he's far and away, not even close, the best free agent on the market. John likes to tell me all the time, the Eagles are a disciplined organization, which they are until they're not, like they were with A.J. Brown. When they needed to be non-disciplined and give him $25 million a year, they did just that. Are they returning to their disciplined roots? Because this just seems to be too easy for me. They have a big need at that position, a guy who wasn't expected to be, or we didn't know for sure he was going to become available, became available. How are the Eagles going to handle the pursuit of James Bradbury?
Listen, you and me and a lot of other people think they should just go out and get him and do what it takes. And, they could certainly, if he's willing to go 1 year, they could sign him to a 1 year, $10 million deal and spread that pain out over the next couple of years at $10 million. But will that be enough? That's the question. The longer Bradbury sits on the market, and I think he was released maybe Monday or Tuesday. So it's been, 2-3 days now, and he's still unsigned. So, he obviously wants more than what teams are willing to pay, or he would be signed by now. So once the expectation catches up with, the realism that maybe he won't get what he wants, then maybe the Eagles can come in and get him that 1 year deal. It certainly makes sense. He's familiar with the NFC East. He gets to play against the Giants twice a year. He gets to play opposite a very solid veteran in Darius Slay. I mean, there are a lot of positives to come into Philadelphia, but the Eagles have been consistent all off season about talking up, the players, the young players they have at the cornerback position. So I wouldn't say it's a screaming need. It probably is in a lot of people's minds. They just don't have that experience and that veteran type guy on that other corner that a lot of us would like to see. But Zach McPherson could be that guy in this defense that is going to be a lot different looking than it's been in the past. So maybe some of the pressure off those corners will be alleviated by the Eagles' ability to put pressure on the quarterback better than what they did last year. Where I'm concerned is the second safety position. I mean, not sure they have a safety yet that they can go to battle with that I'd be comfortable with. The cornerback I'm kind of okay with because I think McPherson, Tay Gowan, those guys, they might be able to do better than what we think. But it sure would make everybody feel more comfortable if Bradbury was in the house, no doubt.
Yeah, why do you think people focus more, Ed, on corner than safety? Because at least at corner, as you mentioned, they have about 7 darts to throw if you add in all the undrafted kids and Mario Goodrich and Josh Jobe and Josh Blackwell, to the names you mentioned. Kerry Vincent Jr. as well, Josiah Scott, who's more of a slot, but they have a lot of cornerbacks. They don't have a lot of safeties. It's basically Anthony Harris, who we got to talk to a little bit yesterday, Marcus Epps, and Kayvon Wallace. Then you have Andre Sacheret, which, is more of a special teams player, Jared Maiden, who, is sort of in that category of unproven, although he is an Alabama guy, Jody. So that might help.
That scores extra points. But
yeah,
Kayvon Wallace, 4th round pick.
Zach
McPherson, 4th round pick. What's the difference?
Well, not to mention the volume, too. You have 4th round pick with Zach McPherson plus a bunch of other guys, but you have 4th round pick Kayvon Wallace and not much else at safety. So why is everyone focused on corner more than safety?
Right. This question for both you two guys. Kayvon Wallace came in at an established level, a 4th round pick. Zach McPherson came in at an established level, 4th round pick. If we're willing to roll the dice with Zach McPherson and say, well, we should have a bigger desire to fill safety because we don't have as much there. Well, the top guy at both of those positions are a former 4th round pick. Do we rate McPherson that much higher than we do Kayvon Wallace at their specific positions as of right now?
Well, I think John touched on it. The depth is what really, you have Zach McPherson, but you have other guys. There's nobody really at safety. Now, realistically, you're only going to keep 4 safeties, I guess, on the 53, right, when all's said and done. And
yeah,
it's that 4th one. You really don't have that. I don't think you have that competition level. Like, it's not just McPherson. Tay Gowan can rise up and take that job. He's a 6th round pick.
I guess I did a very poor job of answering this question. Let me ask it both of you this way then. Who's a better player at his position as of right now? Kayvon Wallace at safety or Zach McPherson at cornerback?
If you're asking me, I would go McPherson for uncertainty reasons. I've seen too much of Kayvon Wallace. I haven't seen as much as Zach McPherson. He might be even worse, but I'm not happy with what I've seen from Kayvon Wallace. At least there's some hope when it comes to Zach McPherson. That's where I am.
Okay. Unknown, a good thing for you too, Ed, that McPherson's more of an unknown, and the unknown of McPherson is better than the known of Kayvon Wallace?
Well, I thought we saw McPherson fill in some snaps last year when Slay went out.
It wasn't great, but we saw.
It wasn't great, but, these guys are 4th round picks for a reason. It's easy to miss on 4th round picks. You have more misses than you have hits, but I would probably go with McPherson at this point, that year 1 to year 2 jump. We never saw that in Kayvon Wallace. And Wallace has a tendency to get hurt a lot, which, his availability isn't always great. So McPherson, to me, when we talked to him last year in camp, he seemed like a pretty confident guy, the kind of guy that can forget about plays, put a bad play behind him. And that's what you want at a cornerback position. So, I would put McPherson ahead of Kayvon.
But I would say this as well. I'd like to add, if I was going to bet on one of these corners, it would be Tay Gowan more than Zach McPherson. And that's just based on size, speed, athleticism. But again, so much of it is unknown. But I think Tay Gowan, he's big and he can run, and that's what the Eagles want, that outside corner.
And let me follow up on something that John's been saying the last 2 days here on the show, Ed. Put it to you. How are we going to find out?
Yeah.
It's 7-on-7 practice. They're not even going to go 11. They're going to need to go undefeated again in the scrimmages that they're playing and look real good doing it. Is Tay Gowan going to win a job there? Yeah, we all know the measurables. We know what they timed that in the combine a couple of years ago. How do you determine who is the guy that's going to elevate from the reserve spot to the starting spot if they don't sign a veteran corner, if they don't sign a veteran free agent?
Well, they'll have 11-on-11 team drills, once summer training camp hits, not so much in the OTAs, but, they'll be able to get a gauge in the summer. Now, is it going to be too late to trade for somebody if you feel like, hey, Tay Gowan and Zach McPherson, they're just not doing what we want them to do, then Howie has to get creative like he did, what was it, in the summer of 2016 when they traded Matthews for Ronald Darby, or maybe that was 2017, but they had to give up a pretty big piece. They gave up a third-round pick and Jordan Matthews, who was Carson Wentz's best friend at the time, for Ronald Darby. And, they have tradable chips, Rager and Dillard. Now, I don't know if any of those guys will do it. You might have to part with like a Quez Watkins, perhaps, if you want to find a cornerback. But I think they'll have enough sample size once summer comes and they start playing more 11-on-11 as to whether or not Gowan and or McPherson can hold up in this defense.
The defense as a whole, we got a little bit of an interesting nugget from Hassan Reddick yesterday, Ed, in that they're shifting sort of the positional coaching responsibilities, and he's working with Jeremiah Washburn as sort of an edge rusher / outside linebacker. And that means, obviously, Nick Rollis is working with the inside linebackers. Tracy Rocker is working with the interior. A lot of people taking this as more of a shift towards a 3-4. Now, ultimately, they're going to use multiple fronts. Going to be odd and even. Nickel is always the base defense in the entire NFL, so none of this really matters. But do you get the feeling they're going to play more 30 looks, 3-4 looks than typically fans are used to here in Philadelphia?
Yeah, you'll see some 3-front looks. I think you're going to see a lot of 5-man fronts with Davis and your 2 tackles, kind of on the interior, and then you're going to see these outside linebackers, Reddick and Kaiser White maybe, or Patrick Johnson, any of these hybrid linebackers. I think you're going to see a lot of 5-man fronts, maybe more than 3-man fronts, and that's how you're going to get your pressure on the quarterback. You're going to bring 5 every play, and your inside linebackers could be Edwards and Nakobe Dean, and then you hold up what you can with the secondary, whether it's Gowan or McPherson, and then Slay, and then your safety. So, yeah, I think we'll see some 3-front looks, but I think you're going to see a lot of 5-man fronts too, and they got the guys on the edge. I think they can get it done, led by Reddick. But, yeah, you're going to see a lot more multiple fronts for sure. You'll see some 4-man, some 3-man, some 5-man. And, they're going to try to keep offenses on their toes and dictate what they can. And, we saw last year quarterbacks complete over 80% of their throws. So they're going to try to, cut that time down they have to throw. Even the quick throws, throwing the ball over at Jordan Davis, who's 6'6", if he comes in with his hands raised, that's not going to be an easy job for any quarterback. So I think you'll see a lot of Davis on the field, and you'll see a lot of 5-man fronts with him parked right in the middle.
All right. Want to get both you guys' takes on this one. When last we saw Isaac Seumalo on the field, he was at left guard for the Eagles. And he's probably been Wally pipped by Landon Dickerson there, that the left guard position isn't necessarily available anymore. So we all assume he's moving over to right guard. Is that going to be an issue? Have we gotten a medical update as to whether he's going to be 100% good to go when camp opens or when they get their quasi practices in during the spring? What's the latest you guys are hearing on Seumalo?
Well, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be good to go. But really, even if he's not, they have so many guys, even after they cut Nate Herbig, that they can plug in there. Jack Driscoll, being one. Perhaps Cam Jurgens, if he takes to that position, it won't be an easy transition for him. But, they have some guys that can fill in there if he's not ready to go. But you're right. He was Wally pipped at the left guard spot. Howie Roseman said as much that, they love that wall they have on that left side with, Dickerson and Jordan Mailata. So see him always going to the right side, whether he likes it or not. And if he can't, fend off the challenge from Driscoll or Jurgens, or I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody there, John. It's not Herbig anymore.
Suo Peta. You got to remember the Tesla stock. But I think Jack Driscoll's the way. Ed knows that the day they cut Nate Herbig, I was starting to formulate they might cut Isaac Seumalo because of how much money he makes. And the second part to my theory was Nick Sirianni loves Jack Driscoll, loves him as a player. And I'm saying, well, if they can get similar play at right guard from Jack Driscoll at a much more cost-effective price, maybe they move on from Isaac Seumalo. Turns out they were going to move on from Herbie. And Isaac's going to get that first chance. But it is something to keep an eye on.
But the offensive line coach loves Seumalo.
He does. He does.
Yeah.
But I think the coach defers to his offensive line.
He typically does. But Isaac, you also have to realize, has played 11 games in 2 years. That's something that factors in as well. But yeah, it is. You're right, Jody. He's going to defer to Jeff Stoutland. Jeff Stoutland, I always used to joke back in the day. Ed probably heard me say it. The Eagles flow chart. It would be, it starts at Jeffrey Lurie, and people would say Howie Roseman would be number 2. I would always joke it's really Jason Peters. I'm not going to put Jeff Stoutland up that high, but I think he's higher than just about anybody but Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie. They give him a lot of, and you know what? Maybe it comes down to last year. Remember, Ed? He was going back to Alabama. The report was out there. I think it was Bruce Feldman, who's more plugged in than anybody at the college level. He was going back to Alabama, and the Eagles convinced him to stay put. And I think there was a lot of convincing by saying, look, Jeff, you're going to have your own little fiefdom. Nobody's going to bother you. Am I crazy with that conspiracy theory?
No, not at all. I mean, Stout carries a lot of weight in this organization, certainly more weight than any other assistant coach on this staff, no doubt. And he's earned it. His lines are good. He develops players that, are kind of unheralded. Look at Nate Herbig. He was on the market for 24 hours before the Jets swooped in. Jody's Jets swooped in and grabbed him up.
He got picked up faster than James Bradbury did.
Yeah,
that's for damn sure.
Well, he was on waivers. What are the Jets? Third on the waiver wire? So he didn't last long.
Yeah, I thought they were fourth, but maybe
fourth.
Yeah, but top 5 for sure. And Joe Douglas knows Herbig. I'm sure he still follows the Eagles, even though Douglas was gone when the Eagles brought Herbig in as an undrafted free agent. But you're not wrong about the Stoutland power. But something to keep in mind first is, Jack Driscoll is no, Cal Ripken. He's not an Iron Man either.
Yeah, that's true. He's always hurt too.
Yeah. So he's got to find a way to stay healthy. And Seumalo, we're talking about potential summertime trades for a cornerback if things don't work out with what they have in-house and Bradbury doesn't come. Seumalo could be a part of a package as well. We talk all the time, John and me, about this being an offensive line deficient league. Teams could always use more players up front. Now, Eagles already lost Herbig. That's a big loss. Would they dare trade away a Seumalo if they, are banking on Driscoll staying healthy? Because then after that, it gets thin. I'm not a big Suo Peta. I don't care what Jason Kelsey says about him being a Tesla stock. I'm not sure he's the guy that you want manning that position over,
Well, you got Cam Jurgens. Well, as now, you got to start him somewhere.
Yeah.
So
it's funny because everybody thought Dickerson was going to be heir apparent to Jason Kelsey,
Yeah.
and he ended up at guard. Now everybody thinks Juergens is going to be the heir apparent to Kelsey, and he could end up as a guard too. And maybe next year the Eagles draft another center. I mean, who knows? But yeah, Juergens certainly could play there. But it was funny, we talked to Kelsey last week, and we asked him if he ever played guard when he first came into the league, and having to make that adjustment. And he said he played 2 snaps at guard, and he gave up a sack to Jason Pierre-Paul on one of them. So that was the end of that experiment. So it's not easy. If a guy like Kelsey can't figure it out, it's going to be a handful for Juergens too. But who knows? Maybe he can.
Yeah.
All right, let me run this one by you. Since we now know Howie Roseman is a fan of the channel because he was good enough to come on with us yesterday. Maybe he's watching today. I want to propose a trade. You tell me if this gets done. I'll play the Casa, the general manager of the Ravens, who there was a report yesterday, a guy I threw out immediately after the draft, Chuck Clark, Ravens starting safety for the last couple of years, now job in jeopardy with the fact that they signed Marcus Williams and drafted Kyle Hamilton. He did speak out yesterday and at least told sources that he wasn't happy with his situation in Baltimore. So he's going to become available if the Ravens GM calls Howie Roseman and says, listen, we'll give you Chuck Clark. You got to give me a 4th-round pick in exchange for him, but there are conditions to it that can move it up. If he plays 80, 85, we could negotiate that out. Percent of the snaps for you this year moves up to a 3. And if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, it moves up to a 2. You get that whole karma thing, winning a Super Bowl rolling, that it will cost you. It's a great thing, but it's going to cost you a little bit. But you get that starting safety that you need. Cost you 4, maybe a 3, could be a 2. But if it's a 2, it's a damn good thing because they won the Super Bowl. What do you say, Howie Roseman? First Kratz, then McMullen. Step into Howie's shoes for me.
Chuck Clark. Yeah, young guy, right? Isn't he pretty young?
Yeah, 26.
Yeah. The second kind of scares me, but hey, you win a Super Bowl, okay.
Yes,
you can have
that's the only way you got
paid
paid second is if you win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and you have the New Orleans Saints second next year, right? So, okay, we'll give you our second, and if we win a Super Bowl, it's going to be the last pick of the second round anyway, right? So, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. If I'm Howie Roseman, I'm
conditional.
Sure. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'll
I'd
give you
like
a
the
fourth
conditional. I'd like conditional picks because I don't mind paying if I win things.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like that part of it. I've heard Baltimore's keeping Clark, so we'll see.
Harbaugh said,
we're
keeping him. But John, what's your favorite line?
Yeah, they're not under oath.
Not under oath, John Harbaugh.
As
They can rethink that in a millisecond, just
But,
like that.
Well, a lot of teams are playing 3 safeties now, going to that big nickel, and Kyle Hamilton, Marcus Williams, Chuck. Who knows? They might be telling the truth if they're telling the truth. But I don't mind paying for success. So if you give me that condition, yeah, I'll jump on that because they need a safety.
You guys told me earlier, safety more than corner.
Well,
they got 22 guys auditioning for the other corner spot. They've only got a couple of safeties, including one kid named Blankenship who went to Northeast, West, South Tennessee, Chattanooga State. So
he's my number one.
Give me Chuck Clark.
By the way, he was my number 1 undrafted free agent, potentially making the 53-man roster. Not because he's the best,
right,
but because he's got the easiest path.
Well, he has to beat out Shashere. They really like Shashere as it's because, like I said, I don't think they're keeping more than 4 safeties. Maybe they keep 5, but it's going to be crowded for Blankenship.
I think he might. Kayvon Wallace is not certain of a roster spot. I mean, they're at the point.
You're going to get unfollowed again. You're going to town here on Kayvon.
You're probably
He's
right.
going to unfollow you.
If they trade for a safety, if they bring in a safety and they beat out Kayvon Wallace, they'll move on from Kayvon Wallace. I don't think he's certain. And if I get unfollowed, I get unfollowed. Now, if I'm putting the odds on it, yeah, odds are he's going to be on the team. I'm saying if he has a bad camp, the Eagles will move on from him. It's not like one of those things where they moved on from Rasul and Sydney in year 3. They'll move on. They'll move on if they have to.
Well, here's another
Disagree?
name. Here's another guy. How about a John Abram, the safety that's kind of been a disappointment in Vegas, I think, right? What about trading Jalen Reagor for him? Two guys coming into the final year of the contract.
I'm already blocked with Jalen, so I could say whatever I want.
Well, listen, Jalen could just stand for a fresh start, whatever you say about him and his abilities.
And I like Jalen personally. I defend him. Jody will tell you. People say Jalen doesn't try. I don't believe that for a second. He tries. He's just lacking confidence. I've never seen him give up on things. He keeps himself in good shape. He works hard. I don't believe that part of it. I just think he lacks confidence and he needs a new start. And that got me blocked. That got me blocked.
Speaking of lacking in confidence, I lack in confidence for Jalen Reagor. So if they call and offer me the safety you mentioned, Ed, I would say, oh, yeah, if you had a 4th-round pick. We'll take Reagor if you had a 4th-round pick to it. Then you got yourself a deal.
But Abram hasn't been any great shake since they drafted
I know,
him.
but you have to pay to get Jalen Reagor off the roster, is my point. I don't think any team is trading for Jalen Reagor at this time. All right, Ed Kratz, you did more than enough work for us. You are dismissed. Thank you very much. Where are you going week 1?
Thanks, guys.
What hotel you staying in Detroit that's better than the one McMullen's staying in?
It's not the Fairfield Inn. Yeah. Where did you say? You didn't go to Detroit last year.
I didn't go. I was the one trip I didn't make last year, but I've been to Detroit, and I usually stay in Romulus, which is out near
Romulus. That's where it was at the Fairfield. You think it's a Fairfield? It's in Romulus, and I had to move the furniture to find a plug.
Well, Bob Groats and I, if you ever have Groatsy on the show, we stayed out in Romulus one year, and that was ask him about Uncle Joe's.
Let me guess. Groats complained.
No,
Groats. No, you're lying. You're lying. Groats complains about everything. What do you lie? Why would you lie to us, Kratz?
Just ask him about Uncle Joe's. It's a great story.
Uncle Joe's. All right, we'll remember that for the next time we get Groats on. Ed, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, buddy.
Thanks, guys. You too.
Thanks,
Kratz here with us. Yes, big schedule release later today. So you know what John McMullen and Jody McDonald are doing tonight. Wait. Aren't the Sixers playing at 7:00? What the hell are we going to do at 8:00, Johnny Mac?
Are they playing? I don't know. Will they show up? I know.
7:00 tip.
By definition, they are playing. I don't know if they're going to be playing.
Oh, shot on goal. The Sixers going to unfollow you too. John McMullen, Jody McDonald here with you. Let's come back, put a bow on the show on Birds 365.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Android TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
The big story on Action News.
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
In Philadelphia, we celebrated the miracle with pride only 5 years ago. And then the following morning, IBEW Local 98 members went back to work, building this city, rescuing our communities from decay, and inspiring the young men and women of the region to take pride in who we are. Like the Cats, Local 98 members believe in hope.
To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities with Local 98, visit us, IBEW98.org.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit. Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rib...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of stateside vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
All right, last couple of minutes with the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald hanging with you. Some people put a big emphasis on this. Yours truly less so than others. I understand where they're coming from, but again, some people just get more worked up about it than I do. Primetime games, 17 of them. Now more primetime games than ever, with Amazon and being the Thursday night package. It's going to be a pretty big deal. At least that's the way they're positioning it this year. Bigger than Thursday night football has been. You got Sunday night, you got Monday night, you got the Saturday games at the end of the season. There'll be more primetime opportunities than probably ever before. And some people think that's how you judge how important a team you are before the season starts. How many primetime appearances are you named for? Last year, coming into the year with Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback, replacing Carson Wentz, coming off a 4-12 season, the Eagles weren't in primetime much at all. This year, they're coming off a playoff season, albeit a 9-8 regular season record, really 9-7 because the JV game at the end of the season against Dallas doesn't count. How many primetime games? We know they got one. Second game of the season, right off the bat, that dueling Monday nighter on week number 2, they get Minnesota at home. How many primetime games are the Eagles going to get? How big a deal is it, Johnny Mac?
Well, it's a big deal from the perspective of it's, who, the league thinks is going to be good. Other than that, it doesn't matter all that much. I'm already getting emails. I have a schedule. I don't know if it's right or not, but so I hesitate to even say. You're obviously going to have the one Thursday night game. Everybody's got to have the
Everybody
one
gets
Thursday
a Thursday, right?
Yeah. The schedule I have has another Monday night football game, so that would be 2, and then the rest of the games I can't see whether it would be Sunday night. So I would assume 2 on Sunday night. So I'm going to guess 5 if you include the Thursday. Which isn't
so they
terrible.
only have one Thursday game.
From what I have, it's not. I don't know if it's official, but from the one that was emailed to me most recently, it matches up with it. It does have Detroit, Minnesota weeks 1 and week 2. It does have Dallas on Christmas Eve. So who knows? But those 3 games match up.
They don't have times on the Sunday games, huh?
No.
All right. So if they get, let me put it this way: they get 4 primetime games. Should Eagle fans be cool with it, happy with it, or ticked off by it?
Well, I would never get ticked off by it. You're asking the wrong person. So I mean,
neither you nor I put as much emphasis on it as Eagle fans.
Yeah, that doesn't mean anything to me. If you want to get upset by it, I will say it. They generally, if they think you're going to be good, they put you on a lot of primetime slots. So if you want to take that as a slight, feel free. But there's better things to do, I would say.
my over-under number is 4. If it's 4, it's a push. If it's less than 4, you've got right to be perturbed.
Well, I'm very confident it's going to be a push at least because you're going to have 2 Monday nights and a Thursday night, so that's 3 right there. And you
if
figure
they get
there's
one
at least
more 4 off a 9-8 season, bounce in the first round of the playoffs, that's fine. If they get 5, I'd be happy with it. If they get 6, you're getting a lot of respect.
And by the way, I'm the opposite. I would be unhappy. I want every game at 1:00 on Sunday.
That's because you're traveling down to those games. Yours truly be traveling over to my remote. Oh, well, I don't even have to travel. I got the remote control. Why do I have to go change a channel? I got it right in my right hand. Partner, we'd be out of time. We'll have plenty to talk about here tomorrow because we will officially have the schedule in our hands. Will you be ready to go?
Mac, by the way. Let's promote that. Glenn Mack now. And Dave Zangaro. Just got Dave to come on at 9:20. So
very nice. G-Mac and schedule. Dave Z. Be ready. Have your I'm going to allow you to do it in pencil, but you are going to have to go WL.
That's a win, Jody. That's a win.
I expect that out of you tomorrow, McMullen. We will be back here on Birds 365 for the day after the schedule release in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.